Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVey, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. And today we're talking with Janis A. Pryor. Welcome, Janis.
Hi, thank you for having me. I hope this is going to be informative and fun.
I have a feeling it will be. Well, it's going to be super fun for me. I've been really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you.
So, if you wouldn't mind, can you just share a little bit about yourself, maybe a little background info on
Sure.
yourself?
It's a question I dread because it's kind of complex, but I'm a native New Yorker. I am a Southerner by upbringing, and I am a New Englander by choice. I have been living
Hmm.
most of my adult life in New England after having attended Bennington College. And I spent the overwhelming majority of my professional life in politics and media. And what that means is, I've worked for senators, I've worked for elected officials, I've worked for activists, I've done staff work, I've done campaign work. And I've also been involved in the media, specifically as a producer. That's how I started in television, as an associate producer, and sort of ended with a flourish of doing 3 1-hour documentaries on the 1984 campaign of Jesse Jackson.
Mm.
And my next big splash in the media was to do a radio talk show that originated at UMass Boston. And it was syndicated to 70 stations across Massachusetts, and it was great fun. It was great fun. But I eventually left Cambridge, which is where I was spending my adult life, and went back to northern New England, ended up in Jackson, New Hampshire. And that's where White Roses began. So,
Okay.
yeah.
White roses.
Yes,
Please.
White Roses.
What is White Roses?
That's good. White
That's
Roses is my first book. It's a memoir.
okay.
Um, when I was in Cambridge, I lived across the street from the Harvard-Smithsonian Observatory, and I am a dog lover. I've had dogs forever. So the observatory grounds became sort of a de facto park for dog walkers in the neighborhood. So my routine was to
Mm.
go every morning and walk. And for years and years, I noticed this guy. And every year, students and professors come and go, but he stayed. And I said, I wonder who this guy is. Fast forward a couple of years later, meet people that you pass walking dogs and so on and so forth, these funny little relationships. And I said to one person I knew who worked there, I said, who is this guy? And she said, what do you mean? What do you mean, Janice? I said, well, who is he? I said, I've been noticing him for God knows how long. I mean, what does he do? And she says, I don't know. And I said, well, go find out. I mean, how many people work there? It can't be that much. And we sort of joked about it. And she said, oh, okay. So the next morning at some terrible hour, like, I don't know, 6:45, I was walking my dog and walk up a little hill and turn around to the back parking lot and then come back in front. And just as I was turning, I heard someone say, I've been watching you for over 20 years. You don't change, the dogs don't change. And I thought to myself, you got to get more sleep, because you're now hallucinating. But he said it again, and I realized this is a real person. And I turned around, and it was the guy I was asking about.
Okay.
And I thought, oh my God. And I really was sort of shocked. And I just sort of stood there like a statue. And he was walking away with this big grin on his face. And I said, who are you? Stop. What's your name? So he told me his name, and I said, okay. And after that, it was like somebody flipped a switch. We kept running into each other, but not just sort of bumping into each other while going somewhere. It was usually preceded by some bizarre story or occurrence in my life. And what
Mm.
happened, one of the first ones I remember is one night I was invited to dinner. And these are good friends of mine that have a sailboat, a big sailboat. And their effort was to try to get me on the sailboat. I don't swim. I'm going nowhere. And I thanked them. And I said, no, I'm not going. And they had another guest that said, you know something? You're going to keep running into people who own sailboats and you're not going to be able to get away from it. And I said, Next day, I'm walking down. I gave him a different name in the book because of his family. I wanted to protect his family's privacy. So the name I gave him in the book was Tony. So he drove down and passed me and slammed on the brakes and backed back. And I said, what's the matter? He says, you know something? He says, I don't know why I have to tell you this, but I want you to know that I sail. I own a sailboat. Really? He says, yeah, I do. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but gotta go. Okay. So that was one. I think one of the most alarming ones for me was, again, I was walking my dog and he was driving by and I stopped him. And this is after some time with these little coincidences. And I simply said, you know something, I don't even know who you are. I don't know your last name. I don't know what you do. And who are you? So he said, well, I work with computers, and my face just went blank and he explained what he did. And I was reasonably impressed,
Oh.
And then he told me his name and he looked at me and he said, what's wrong? Before I came out, I had talked with my grandmother's niece, who has a daughter named Janis, who had just married a man with the same name.
Oh.
And I had to say something to him because I just looked so stunned. And he says, what's wrong? And said, no, I just talked to a relative and, she has a son-in-law who has the same name as you. And he sort of laughed. I didn't tell him that she had a daughter named Janis. That was too much. I could not do that. And he says, well, I got a big family. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll see you. So to make a longer story short, I finally emailed him and I said, look, you need to know some things. And I started listing all of these coincidences. And it was like 3/4 of a page.
Wow.
And he saw me and he said, I asked him, I said, you get my email? He said, yeah. He said, and I was, I was so impressed that you could tell me that. I said, yeah, something's going on here. And he said, yeah. And I said, for some reason, I think we're supposed to get to know each other, or at least know each other.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I'd like that, and that's how it started.
So
And
this was what year?
I don't know, probably 2008, 2007, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And he said, we'll get to know each other. That'll be interesting. And we did. And we did. And the last day that I saw him, he was late. He was taking out some colleagues for a boat ride, in his sailboat. And he says, I really got to go. I got to do this. I said, yeah. And I said, be careful. And he said, oh, yeah, I'm always going to be careful. And so he went. I can still see it in my mind's eye. And the next, ironically, I had not listened to the news the night before, which was very rare for me. So I got up that morning and I went online and there was an email from this friend of mine from the observatory, the woman that I said, you go find out who this guy is. And she said, I'm going on vacation. She says, I don't know if you heard it on the news, but Tony drowned last night. Yeah, that was pretty much my response. And I kept reading it over and over, said, this cannot be. This cannot be. But it was. And what had happened the night before, there was a story on the local news about this.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I pretty much turned into a basket case. I was frantic. I needed information. I wanted to know how it happened. I wanted to know where it happened. I had to figure out how to get this information. And
oh my word. Because you guys were meant to meet. We know this and get to know one another. And then he's gone.
Then he's gone.
How much time did you have with him?
About 2 years.
Wow, 2 years.
2 brief years.
2 brief years. Yeah. I
And
mean, that doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
no, it didn't make sense to me then. And although I have figured out a lot about why it happened that way, I'm still not happy about it.
Mm.
Um, but
Mhm.
it is what it is. I was really devastated. I was really devastated, and
Mm.
very few people knew about it. And the next thing I wanted to do, because he was very close to one of his sisters, I wanted to reach out to her. And after a few phone calls, I found out where she was, and I wrote her a note, and well, that's that, and then I attended the funeral, and that's where it started, so
So it started. Something
yeah,
started at the
yeah, at the
funeral.
funeral. So I'm sitting
Mm.
there trying to just grapple with why I'm here.
Mhm.
And I'm standing, to get up at some point in the service and say a prayer or do something. And I feel someone grab my hand, and it was my left hand. And I hear, "This is our church. This is where we would have been married." And I went, "Oh, okay. All righty then." And I thought, ooh, just, yeah, it was as clear as a bell. It was as clear
Okay,
as a bell.
had
Yeah.
you ever that's probably very startling. Now, had you ever had any kinds of experiences like this growing up as a
Mhm.
child?
Yeah,
Oh,
when I
you
was
did.
3 years old.
Okay.
I was 3 years old. So, it didn't like terrify me or anything, but it did startle me. It just sort of startled me. And then it faded. Julie just sort of faded. His presence faded, the
Mm.
touch faded. And I turned and looked at the end of the pew, and there was a woman, very distinguished looking woman. She, hair pulled back in a white bun, that kind of distinguished.
Mm.
And she looked at me and smiled, and something said to me, she just saw that. She knows what just
Ooh.
happened. And I said, all right, the service was over. I went to find his sister, and then I looked for this other woman who had vanished like that, just vanished. I
Mm.
don't know where she went. Fast forward, maybe a month, and I was in Harvard Square getting ready to cross the street. Like, how you feel people staring at you. And I turned, and it was this woman from the church.
Okay.
Yeah. And I said, I apologize for staring, but she says, yes, we've met before. She says, I have to talk with you. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. I've got this, that, and the other to do. It shouldn't take long, and you're welcome to come to my home, and we can, have tea or whatever it is you want to have. And she says, fine, I have a few things to do also, and, I will meet you there. And I said, fine. And I crossed the street, and then I thought, she doesn't know where I live. What's wrong with you, Janice? So I turned around and looked for her. She'd gone. I said, huh,
Huh. What is
whatever will
going
be.
on
Yeah,
here?
like whatever will be, will be. I just, can't fixate on that right now. I got home. She's standing at the front door. And hi. I said hi. And she says, hello, can we talk a bit? And I said, sure, would you like to come in? So, I go through my let's fix tea kind of thing. And she's looking at me very intently, and she says something to the effect of, you realize things are going to change now. And he's never going to leave you. He's always
Mm.
going to be with you. And I was speechless, Julie. I
Mm.
was I was speechless. And she must have stayed, felt like hours, but it was probably maybe 15, 20 minutes. And she got up, and I remember getting up, and my hand brushed against hers for whatever reason. I know it was clearing the table, but it was something, transitory like that.
Mhm.
And it felt like suede. Her skin felt like suede.
Suede.
Yeah, it felt like suede.
Huh.
And there was no way of knowing how old this woman was. She was just one of those ageless people. And I thanked her very much. And I said, how can I reach you if I ever need to talk to you? She says, I will know. I will know when you need me. And I said goodbye and closed the door. And I ran into the next room because I could look out the window, because that's the path from my door to take a look. She'd gone. She was Gone gone. And
so did you think, what were you thinking? Did you have any thoughts like, is this some kind of angel, or
yeah,
you
I
were
did.
thinking
I
that?
shared it with cousin May, the other Janice's mother, and I called her immediately and said, I had to tell you what just happened here. And she said, well, you just had a visitation.
Okay.
I said, oh, from where? A visitation from where? She said it was an angel. And May was very enthralled with Tony. I told her a lot about him. And she was so upset with me that I wasn't more aggressive with him. And when he passed, she was devastated also. She just could not get over it.
You mean aggressive, like she wanted you to push the relationship
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because she said to me, the first time I talked to her about him, she said, you two are meant to be. And it just sort of came out of nowhere. It was almost like mid-sentence. And I said, really, you think so? I said, I know so. She said, I know so. You two are meant to be, so you better get on it. Okay. Okay. But after this visitation, I ended up leaving Cambridge. It was getting very hard for me to be there and walk those grounds every day. And so I ended up in Jackson, New Hampshire. I went up there for 2 weeks and I ended up staying 10 years. And it was a lovely spot I was sharing with the sister of a friend of mine. And you could look out the sliding glass doors of the living room and see Mount Washington. It cured what ailed you. So I drove up there, and I remember the first time I pulled into the driveway and I got out, and it just felt like so much weight was taken off of me. I just felt, oh, thank God. And I looked at the front door, and there was Tony. And he looked at me and he said, you're safe now. And I said, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see the dead. I'm one of those people, like in the movie, I see dead people.
What I was going to say, okay, was this the first time you had seen him after he passed? And have you seen other people that have passed on? Oh, come on, do tell. Like,
No,
when did that start?
when I was 3.
Oh, it all started.
I
Whoa.
was here's the lore. I was like one of those people born with a veil over your face, the amniotic sac that's often encases babies as they come out of the birth canal. It is, the numbers on that, it's like less than 1 in every 80,000 children born have that. Anyway, the symbolic meaning of that is, this is a child who can see through the veil, which meant see to the other side. And I came from a family and a culture that believed in that. So it was something that they took very seriously. And it was a matter of, when is it going to show itself? And it showed itself when I was 3, and I was asleep, woke up, and I remember so clearly propping myself up on my elbows, and at the foot of my bed was my uncle. And it was my mother's only brother, who had died when he was 21. And he was aglow, Julie. He was just this creamy, white, yellow light. The whole length of the bed was just aglow. That's the only way I can describe it. And we had a conversation, or at least he told me something that I didn't, quote, remember until almost 50 years later. But he dissolved, he went away, and I jumped out of bed and I ran into the kitchen where my grandparents were. And I said, I just saw Uncle George. And my grandfather said, you did? I said, yeah. And he said, well, what happened? And I said, he told me something I can't remember. And he said, you will remember it when it's time. what would you like to eat? And it was just that calm, just that matter of fact.
Wow.
It's like, all right, what do you want to eat now? So,
What an interesting family that it's just this is
yeah.
the way it is. What was there a particular religion that y'all followed or?
I mean, we were, ordinary Christians. I
Hmm,
think what's important is that there is sort of a psychic trail
mm,
in my grandmother's family, that her father, my great grandfather, was known as a seer. So
mm,
people came from all around to listen to him. And my
mm.
grandmother was a powerful healer.
Wow.
And my mother was crazy. She just went over the edge. And
Too
as they
much?
say, she went to the dark side. My mother went to the dark side in terms of understanding those powers and that ability. So when
Oh.
I was born, she was terrified of me.
Oh,
And,
wow. Wow.
yeah, she's terrified of me because I could see the dead and do some other things that I never thought twice about that really freaked her out. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, that's when it started. So there were other little things along the way that told me.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think then that this is a genetic thing? That
Yeah,
it's passed? I mean,
there are some theories about that. That psychic abilities, have a genetic trail within a family. That if
hmm,
one person is gifted with one of those abilities, you can count on somebody else in the family also having that. I am not in a position to say, yeah, that's absolutely true or not, but it was true in my family.
mm,
And so on the one side, there was this trail of psychic abilities, and the other side, there was this Native American streak because my grandfather was part Native American. So there's all kind of stuff,
right. I'm
balled up there.
surprised that you didn't get into you got into a career that's just so the opposite end of the
I
spectrum and
know, I know.
did you have to sort of just shove all that down and push it away in a
Um,
sense?
I was conflicted. I was very conflicted, and not so much between, quote, the psychic powers, but my conflict was, do I go and follow, my artistic pursuits, because I was an art major in college and went to
Mm.
the High School of Music and Art. That was very much a part of my life.
Oh, okay.
Um, or do we go the political way? Because I came from the generation who was going to save the world, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I call us a generation with a face full of blood that started with the Kennedy assassination and so on. So that
Mm,
was always tearing at me, and politics was
yeah.
something that was frequently discussed in our house.
Okay.
So what are you going to do? You know,
Yeah.
what are you
Mm.
going to do? So obviously I chose to go off and save the world, and I did my bit and I left it to the next generation.
Okay, so if it's okay, can we go back to Tony? And
Oh, sure.
and you
Sure.
see him at the
Yeah. Yeah. At the front door. And
and this was
yeah,
your
yeah,
first sighting?
that's
Is
right.
that what we
That's it.
should
That's
call
it.
it?
That was the first sighting. Um,
Were you thinking it's about time because I didn't
no,
realize you
I did
knew.
not do that. I did not think
Oh,
it's about time.
okay.
I don't know why. So when I did see him, I was sort of startled, like, so this is the way it's going to be. And then he just sort of, the word is dissipated.
Okay.
It wasn't like he vanished. It was like he faded. And I
Okay.
thought,
Right.
okay, so I'm supposed to be here because I'll be safe. Okay, fine.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
it was cold when I got there. And the following spring, I was looking out the window at Mount Washington, and I felt two hands on my shoulders. And I heard, tell our story, tell what was meant to be and what
Mm.
was. It was early May. And he said, and finish it by the end of May.
Wow.
Okay.
Confidence in you, I guess.
Either that or pure madness. And by the end of May, it was like May 3rd. Uh-huh. So I thought, yeah, I'd probably do that if I can write like 10 pages a night. I got very matter of fact about it, to turn this thing out. And May 23rd, I finished the first draft.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that's interesting. 20 days later, it took him 20 years to talk. Now we got 20 days later. That's fascinating. So
Ah.
I started writing, and I ended up having a schedule of like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. because it was the only time that was quiet. There were no distractions. Dogs were walked, all that kind of stuff. So I'd sit in bed, and I just type the story. So I was into it about, I don't know, 7 to 10 days. And I'm sitting there, typing, and it was like out of the corner of my eye, I see the image of this actor at the time who was very popular.
Mm.
And by the third night, the image had grown, and it sort of like took over the room. And I remember so clearly stopping and saying, okay, what's with this guy? Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And why is it happening only when I'm writing about this?
Mm.
So I said, well, he's got to have some connection to Tony.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. Got to have some. So I looked up everything I could find out about this man, and they had quite a few similarities. They were both
Oh.
close to one of their sisters. They had both gone to Brandeis, but only for 2 years. They both loved the color blue. And I started writing this list down, and I thought, well, this is interesting, but I knew there was something else. I just knew it. There's
Mm.
got to be something else here.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, let me find his official biography, because find anything. And I did. And so I'm reading, yada, 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 yada. And I get down to the last line, which was his birth date. And his birth date was the same as Tony's.
Wow. Okay. What in the
And I
world?
went, whoa, this is interesting. But
Mm-hmm.
it was like, yeah, it's interesting, but so what? I mean, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
I,
Tony, you said
Tony said
Tony
to
was at
me,
the.
yes, at the foot of the bed, and said, this, he's my emissary. He's going to help you through this and get you through some very difficult times while you write this and get it written.
Hmm.
And I had no clue how that was going to happen.
This is a living actor, or
Yes, yes. And I know
what in the
for some
world?
reason he needs to know about this.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not sure why, only he knows that. Okay, so he's your emissary. Okay, I keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. After the book is written, I would say almost wasn't quite a year, but it was a stretch after the book was written. And I'm watching television, and this actor was in a series that was very popular at the time. It was what I call swoon material, where women would swoon, and I'm sitting there looking, and I'm swooning with the rest of, all these women who've gone absolutely nuts over this guy. And out of the corner of my eye, I see
You see Tony sitting. Okay.
yeah, and I said, what? I said, what? Why are you here now? And he nodded at the screen, and he said, there was this big passionate scene going on. He said, that's the way I feel about you.
Oh.
Yeah, see, and I just sort of dissolved. And then he dissipated. And yeah, I tried to contact this actor. I wasn't successful. That December, I started seeing him with an older gentleman standing next to him, very close to him. They were almost hugging. And then the older gentleman started to move further and further and further and further away, and then vanished.
Mm.
And something said, you gotta tell this man. I don't know what this means, but maybe he does. And I couldn't do it. And I'm heartsick about that.
Oh.
What did happen was the next month he passed. This older gentleman was his father.
Okay.
And he passed away.
Yeah.
God,
So these are like premonitions you're having as well. So you have some clear abilities.
Clairvoyance.
Yeah, sounds like. I mean,
Yes, and it isn't with everyone,
mm,
Julie. It's not a random kind of thing. It usually has to do with people I know or that, I have a connection with,
mm-hmm,
or even I'm working with. So it's not like I'm walking down the street and see John
right,
Smith and know, tomorrow he's going to get hit by a truck. It's not like that at all.
right, right,
Yeah, yeah, I don't want to give that false impression.
right.
But yeah, I was heartsick about that.
Yeah,
And like I said, for some reason, this actor's supposed to know about all this. I have no idea why.
yeah. It's just
Nobody
very
likes to say, you
interesting.
need to do this because, it's like you need to do this, period, and get it
Yeah.
done. Um,
So,
yeah,
so that
yeah,
was that's the first time you ever wrote a book?
yeah, yeah. It was the second time, really. The first time was an effort to write this book about my mother, which was like stop and start, stop and start. But to
Okay.
sit down and write it straight through like that, it was as if I had opened a closet door and there was the information. All you got to do is
Wow.
copy. Yeah, it was
Oh,
a very, very, very interesting process. Very interesting process. But it opened the door to, my one of my early desires, which was to be a writer.
hmm.
And I have to thank Tony for that.
So how long ago did you finish the book? When was it published?
Yeah, White Roses was published in 2018.
Oh,
Yeah, not that long ago, 2018.
oh,
Hold on,
you
let me.
you took a while to publish then, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, what
Uh,
writing the book was no problem. Getting it published
Right.
was a nightmare. Oh, I'm sorry. Copyright 2017. Um,
Okay. And has Tony, is he still with you today? Do you
yeah,
connect?
yeah, yeah.
Has your connection gotten stronger, your communication, or not? So is it that the
No, no,
same?
it's clearer. That's what I should say. It's clearer. There's not as much, at least from my part, mystery about why this is happening. And shortly before I finished White Roses, and oh my God, and all kinds of anomalies started to happen around the house. That was the other.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
wait, right after his passing or
while I was writing the book.
while you're writing?
I was
Okay.
writing the book. The first one happened when, I'm sitting there at night, I'm writing in my bedroom, and the burglar alarm goes off. And it was like close to 2 a.m. And I thought, oh God, this is it. Somebody's broken in. Oh
This
God.
is how I'm going.
This is how we're
I'm
going,
going
man.
out.
This is it. And then it got real staticky, and it
Static.
sounded like, you
Oh,
you like tuned into some radio, police radio, stuff gets all scrambled sometimes. And
yeah.
then it just stopped. And I
Hmm.
sat there motionless, waiting, for Mac the knife to come through the wall or something, and
Mhm.
nothing happened. So the next morning, because I was sharing this house with this friend of mine, and I went upstairs into the kitchen and she was there, and I said, look, you got to call whoever it is that, maintains the burglar alarm because it went off last night. And she looks at me, she says, what are you talking about? And I described what happened. She says, it's not on. It's never been on since we've been here. It was broken. It's not
Oh,
working.
so,
So she looked at me like,
hmm.
it's like, so the next night it happened again. And she came flying down the stairs. She says, what is that? Why is it? I said, this is what I've been trying to tell you.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, and that went off. Okay. So then um, we had some people in and we were talking, and I heard this ringing sound, and it sounded like a telephone, but it wasn't the land. I didn't think it was the landline because upstairs it wasn't ringing where we were. So it was
Mm,
off in the distance.
mhm.
And she said, what is that? I don't know. I said, well, I'm going to follow the sound. You just stay here. And it was in my bedroom where the extension was, and it just kept ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing.
Hmm.
And I was spooked. I am happy to tell you that I was spooked. I was just fixated at that phone. And finally it stopped and I went back upstairs and she said, well, what was it? I said, it was the phone by my bed. It was ringing. What do you mean it was ringing? It's ringing. That's all I know. Okay, ringing. So that happened. Then several weeks later, I was there alone and it started again. And I
Mm.
went into it just in my bedroom. And I remember standing there going, okay, I got to answer this now. I
Hmm.
really got to answer
Yeah,
this.
for
Stupid,
sure.
you know. So I picked up the phone and I hear all this static,
Oh, okay.
the same kind of static that came out of the burglar alarm,
Yeah, right,
you
right.
know.
Hmm.
And I kept saying hello, hello, and then the static sort of undulated between loud and soft.
Hmm.
And I was talking to a friend of mine who's an astrophysicist who knows me very well, and he said, and who knew Tony as well. And he said, Janice, think about it a minute. Did it sound like there was a voice speaking? You know how the human voice modulates. You know,
True. Right,
yeah. You
right.
know, I said, well, yeah, it could be. And he just sort of
Huh.
grinned at me, and I thought, uh-huh, okay. So we had
Wow.
those two things. And and there are others, but I think those are the most dramatic ones. The last one I'll share with you is I was going downstairs to bed. I had sort of the garden level of the house, so I'd go downstairs, and I got to the foot of the stairs, and off in the distance you could see the bedroom door to my bedroom, and there was this light coming from the room. I
Mm.
went, oh God, what is this? By now, it was like, it could be anything. It's like, oh God, what is this now? And my dogs went over and just sat at the doorway, and they were staring. Oh God, this is not good. So I went in, and the whole room, Julie, was just aglow.
Mm.
And Tony was seated on the bed, at the foot of the bed.
Oh.
And I remember just sort of like, I don't mean like some vague ghost like image. I mean, he was there. And I said, who's going to believe this? And he said, does it matter? And I said, yeah, it does. I said, I think this should be in the book.
Yeah.
And he just smiled, and I don't know how much time went by, but eventually I got ready for bed and I got in bed and I could feel his hand on my shoulder. And I said again, who is going to believe this? And he said, those who have eyes to see and ears to hear will know, the rest won't matter.
Mm.
That's my story.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story, and it's continuing. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
Is
yeah. He pops up every now and then, especially if I'm going through some kind of difficulty.
so, in your opinion, why, what was the purpose of all of this? I mean, obviously it's a love story, but um,
I think,
the way it all
yeah, the way
happened.
it happened, and he said in a reading I had with a psychic, he apologized, and he said, I didn't mean to leave so soon.
Mm. Hmm.
Uh, God, what good is that going to do me? But I think he served as a trigger, Julie, to reawakening
Hmm.
my clairvoyance, if you will. I think that was one purpose. I think the
Yeah.
other purpose was to push me into fulfilling the need to be a writer by
Mm.
giving me something, you can do this,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
providing the motivation and all the unusual circumstances around it.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I tell myself, and it makes sense for me.
Yeah.
It's like I want to challenge him on any of this.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but that's what I think.
Are you using your abilities in just only in a private way, not really in
Mhm.
any kind of public
Oh
manner?
no, yeah, I no, it's yeah, it's private. I think that's the best way to
It's in your personal
yeah, with
life
with
and
friends, with or
right.
something is coming down the pike, I will share it with friends, but I'm not into calling you up and saying, I want to come on your YouTube story and tell you what's about to happen. That is not what is not what I do.
And then you ended up writing 2 more books, or
Yes.
correct? Yes.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I
Yes,
would.
they were 2 more books are out. The most recent one came out January 1st, and
Oh,
it's called Victoria's Family: Human,
Victoria's Family.
Alien, Hybrid.
Human, and
And
and what is this story about?
it's about a little girl who is unusually bright and precocious, goes to some strange school with other unusually bright and precocious little girls whose heritage is human and alien.
Okay.
And she was put into this family. It was an African American family, and her quote mother was a host for her,
Mm.
but not her mother. Her real mother was this woman's best friend. Um, and the question, one of the questions that drove me to write this is, what would this experience be like in a upper middle class African American family? How is that going to be different?
Mm.
And the second is, what can this little girl do, with all these abilities that she's just coming to grips with when she's about 11 or 12 years old. And so it follows her and the wide circle of her quote family coming to terms with this. And it's also a statement about what is family and who is family.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
Who is family?
this is so creative. What inspired this? Is this anything based on true story?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. And as a matter of fact, the book is dedicated to John Mack.
oh,
Yeah, who,
okay.
helped so many experiencers integrate these episodes in their life and continue to, function and go to work and be quote normal, even though they've gone through this quote extraordinary experience.
Is it
So this
okay
is,
to ask you if you've been through that? If you've
yeah,
experienced,
yeah,
you are an experience.
yeah,
It's called an experiencer.
experiencer. Yeah, yeah, that's a
Okay.
lot of fun.
Okay.
But this is about a little girl, coming to terms with who she is, and those people around her trying to come to terms with who and what she is. And
Mm.
it's tricky. It's
Mm-hmm.
tricky, but
That sounds like a really interesting book.
well, I had a lot of fun writing it. I really did. I had a lot of fun writing it. And my literary manager said to me recently, she says, "All right, what else are you going to do with Victoria?" And I said, "What are you
Mm.
talking about?" And she said, "This could be a series. I mean, you left enough openings, so this could be
Yeah, why
a series."
not?
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, I'll think about it. I haven't thought about it too much, but I will. I just had a lot of fun writing that. And
Yeah,
the
very
second book
nice.
was Dinner with Trixie, which is
Dinner
about
with Tricks.
another element in my life. The full title is Dinner with Trixie. What is it? Hold on,
This
hold on.
is the third book.
Well, no, Victoria was the third book. The
Oh,
second
okay. This
book,
is the second one.
yeah,
Okay.
the second book is Dinner with Trixie. The South settles an old score with the North. And
Okay.
it evolved from my really strong feelings about how the North is just as culpable when it comes to racism as the South.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I created two extremely wealthy white families, one from the North, one from the South,
Mm-hmm.
and their interaction and how the Southern family decides they're going to get even with this Northern family that they've had relationships with
Mm,
since the Civil War.
mm.
And it
Wow.
part of it was produced for the stage. I wrote an adaptation for one of the chapters, and it was played out at the Multicultural Arts Center in Cambridge.
Ooh, cool.
And that gave me a different kind of satisfaction because it really did generate lots of conversations that needed to be
Oh,
had.
I
So,
bet. That's
that,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, it was a different kind of fun. It was a different kind
Wow.
of fun. So,
Well, that's congratulations on all of these fun, amazing successes, really. Are you
Whatever, yeah.
working on, do you have anything going on now? Like,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh God, this is what I call the mother book. And it's
oh,
about mother's madness. It's called um,
oh, okay.
surviving abuse at the intersectionality of race, class, and lunacy. And
Wow.
it's been difficult. It has been difficult because that
Mm,
was a very
mm,
difficult, poisonous relationship that we had.
mm,
Um, and I wasn't sure I'd survive it, to tell you the truth. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. We'll see. It's long and it's sort of a hybrid format because I didn't feel the story could be completely told in a traditional narrative way. So
mm,
there are pieces that read like essays.
mm,
There are other pieces that read like narrative poetry,
mm.
in
Wow.
addition to the, once upon a time this happened, da 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 da.
Yeah, yeah.
But I knew from the first time I met her, which was around the age of 5 or 6, there's something wrong with her. I just knew that. You talk about those kind of abilities. I remember looking at her and thinking, she's got too many people inside of her. And,
Mm,
and I was really
mm,
afraid because I didn't know what she was going to do. And for most of my life, people thought she was a charming, wonderful woman.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah, well, you'll see something going to happen. And it did. So it happened.
Okay.
It blew open. Let me put it this way: the trigger for this. I got home from work in Cambridge, found a message from the Bronx office of the district attorney. So I thought, oh, and Julie, my first thought was, they caught me on the parking tickets. That was my first.
Oh,
Notorious for not paying my parking tickets. And I thought, oh, now the fact that I had been out of New York City for almost 20 years never crossed my mind, but it's the parking tickets. So I took a deep
yeah.
breath and I called. It was a guy, his name was Officer DiGaetano. And I said, hi, my name is Janis Pryor. I'm returning your call. Oh, Miss Pryor, thank you so much for calling. Friendly, couldn't have been friendlier. He said, we're calling just to let you know that your mother forged your name on some insurance documents.
Oh.
I said, what?
Mm,
And then he
wow.
said, no, no, don't worry. We know it was a forgery because we've already pulled your signature card from your bank. I thought, whoa.
Mm,
And the third thing that stayed with me, he said, everybody we've talked to have had this reaction. I said, what do you mean everybody? What do you talk? How widespread is this? And he didn't really answer that, you know. And so he chatted for a few moments, and my brain was like racing around. And he took down, is this the best number to reach you, and all that kind of nonsense. And I said, yeah. I says, well, I'd like to have a conversation between you and the assistant district attorney.
mm.
You might be asked to come down and appear before a grand jury.
Oh boy.
I hung up. I called my mother immediately. I called her Tina. That was her name. I said, Tina, what have you done? She said, what are you talking? I said, I just got a call from the Bronx office of the district attorney, and this is what he told me. And she said, oh, don't worry about that. It'll blow over. I said, no, forgery charges are not going to blow over. Okay. I said, what have you been doing? And she says, well, and I said to her, I'm going to have to go down there unless we can work something out and testify before a grand jury. What have you been doing? Then she said, oh, please. She said, daughters can't testify against their mothers. I said, no, that is so wrong, Tina. You
Yeah.
better get yourself an attorney.
Yeah.
And that's what triggered this rendition of the book.
Mm.
That's how it starts. And then it goes back and back and forth and back and forth and right up until her death, which was awful. Nobody
Mm.
should have to die that way.
Well, we are so far out of time,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
am all of these books sound really fascinating and amazing.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing so much of your life, your heart, your story. Tony, Tony.
Well, Julie, I'm old. I mean, what can people do to me? It's like, okay, I'm old now. I don't
You're
care.
like, let it all out now.
Yeah, just here's a story. Yeah.
So I am going to put, of course, all the links in the video description for the listeners to be able to get a hold of your books, get a hold of you, your website, so they can contact you. And I hope that's okay.
That is okay. That is okay. It will force me to pay, greater attention. If they want to directly email me, though, that might be more efficient.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And,
I will absolutely include that.
yeah, put that in there, and they should just put in the subject line, your name or the show or something, so I don't
Okay.
buy it, and think it's spam or something. But thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And so thank you to Janis A. Pryor. And thank you to everyone watching. This has been Julie McVey with Unordinary Made Ordinary. And I hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating interview. And if you did enjoy this, of course, give it a thumbs up. And then if you like this type of content, then please subscribe. And I do hope you're having a wonderful day or evening, wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.